Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Erica Jones in the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition today, as always, we're on Birmingham area municipal access. Both of our cable television stations are on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. We're also on the radio in the Birmingham Bloomfield area in southeastern Michigan on 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. On the web, civiccentertv.com, click on our Watch Live link or join us at the small player at the top right of our homepage, as well as on My Michigan Television or MyTV, mymitv.com. You can find more information about that and subscribe. It's also available on your smart TV and on your smartphone as well. And you can find us on social media, facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm. As always, I'm joined here in the studio by Erica Jones. Good morning, Erica.
Good morning, Tyler. I don't know if you're quite ready to get into the headlines yet, but if I might as well just jump the gun here, because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about how tired I am this morning because I went to sleep at a very reasonable hour last night, but there was something keeping me up all night, and that was these storms. It was horrible, and I didn't really understand. I was like really proud of myself going to sleep, reasonable hour, and then I woke up this morning and I was like, I don't know if I ever really slept for more than an hour.
Yeah, I have been wide awake at ungodly hours of the night all throughout the week, so I'm quite sleep deprived. And but the opposite way around. When I eventually did get to sleep, I was fine. The storms didn't affect it at all. Didn't really know they were. If I hadn't checked the weather report earlier on in the evening, I wouldn't have even known they were going on. But that being said, a lot of people are very aware that it's going on as we go into today's headlines, Erica, on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where you can also find the latest information on COVID-19 directly from the sources that you need to get them from at the state, federal, and local level. We have a link to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention by our CDC resources link, the state of Michigan, as well as Oakland County. And making headlines today, our top story right now, flash flood warnings in Metro Detroit are in effect as 700,000 plus Michiganders lost power yesterday due to the storms. This from the Detroit Free Press. Consumers Energy and Detroit Edison Energy crews were already working feverishly into the night after severe thunderstorms knocked hundreds of thousands of Michiganders out of power on Wednesday evening. Then another barrage of severe storms hit southeast Michigan overnight, adding flash floods, more downed power lines and trees, and more outages to the mix. At 6:30 Thursday, or as of 6:30 this morning, more than 215,000 Consumers Energy customers are without power, as well as more than 500,000 DTE Energy customers, according to both companies. The National Weather Service also issued a flash flood warning for southern Macomb County, southern Oakland County, and northern Wayne County until 9 a.m. on Thursday. Between 2 and 4 inches of rain fell between the storms Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday overnight. Said Sarah Schultz, meteorologist at the National Weather Service located out in White Lake. She said Pinckney accumulated a total of 4.21 inches of total rainfall. All lanes of northbound I-75 at 9 Mile in Oakland County and both directions of I-94 at I-96 in Macomb County are completely blocked due to flooding as of this morning, as well as all lanes of I-94 after Michigan Avenue in Wayne County. Eastbound I-696 at Groesbeck is also closed due to flooding. Streets leading up to Detroit Metropolitan Airport were flooded early Thursday morning. The lanes have now since reopened, but the airport's Twitter warns that flooding still impacts traffic and recommends that passengers going through Detroit Metro Airport leave early, extra early, to make sure that they get to their flight on time. Hot and humid conditions will persist again today, according to the National Weather Service's White Lake office, with an afternoon heat index in the 90s. Another quote from the National Weather Service official out of White Lake says, quote, "We have a marginal risk for severe weather mainly between 4 p.m. and 2 a.m. That'd be 4 p.m. today and 2 a.m. on Friday," Schultz said. She continued, "So today we are looking at the Detroit area around 90 degrees, but then once we have this cold front that comes through later on, that's why we are concerned about getting another round of storms and everything, it will start cooling off." Consumers Energy and DTE have dispatched hundreds of thousands of power restoration crews across southeast Michigan as of 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Heavy rains and 60-mile-per-hour winds damaged more than 2,000 power lines, DTE said in a news release. Teams will be working 16-hour shifts around the clock to restore power as the company brings in an additional 1,000 line workers from out of state to assist with the restoration efforts. DTE customers can expect a more accurate restoration estimate once a crew has been assigned to their outage, DTE said in that statement as well. Michigan State Police in Metro Detroit took to Twitter to warn residents of storm damage and power outages. Police reminded drivers to treat darkened intersections as a four-way stop. DTE also advised people to unplug and turn off their appliances to prevent an overload once power is restored. The company also advised against driving over downed power lines. If you do encounter a downed power line, please call 911. Do not interact with that downed power line. And if it happens in front of you, if it makes contact with your car, stay in the car and make that call. Definitely a very dangerous situation here in the local area. Once again yesterday with severe weather. Later on in the show, about 10:40 this morning, we will hear from a recent interview we had with Jim Nash from the Oakland County Water Resources Commission about what they're doing to address climate change issues on the local level and communicate with state and federal officials as well, and to address infrastructure issues in the local area that are also affecting some of these flooding situations, especially on our highways and in neighborhoods downriver. Certainly the Dearborn area over the past month or so has been severely impacted by these storms, and especially by the flooding. As people have had their homes flooded, they've restored the situation or have collected insurance to be able to pay for the restoration of their homes in those areas that may have been damaged by the water. And then a few days later, here it is again. A few weeks later, here it is again. So a treacherous situation here in southeastern Michigan, all throughout the state with these storms, is now, as it's reported, between DTE and consumer customers. As a result of yesterday's storms, nearly 1 million people out of power.
Well, the more we talk about this, I can't believe that you were able to sleep through this. Even last night, before the middle of the night, my brother lives out in Royal Oak and I live here in West Bloomfield, but we were on the phone and he was like, I think this is the hardest rain and wind I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was crazy. Talking about the Dearborn area being super impacted. I haven't been out there, but even here in West Bloomfield in my neighborhood, and not to give away too many details, don't come stalking me, but I live about 2 minutes away from here, and trees falling all over my neighborhood. So even around here, it's been very, very challenging. I have been very lucky. I haven't lost power at all these past few weeks. Have you?
My power has flickered a couple of times. We had a storm that had a tornado warning a couple of weekends ago. That I did lose power a couple of times, but it was very brief, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Not very long power outage or sustained power outages. We did have some power flashes and power surges here yesterday that didn't affect really any of our broadcast equipment or our ability to continue to stay on air, because we do, of course, have a generator over here. But definitely created a situation where we were wondering for our meeting broadcasts, of course, if the location that we were broadcasting from would retain their power with the storms likely having 2 hits. They did. It all went fine, but our area very lucky just generally around our building here today that we still have power. A lot of people still in this general area have power, and we didn't get hit as hard as those in the Detroit area and those downriver and in Macomb County as well that were severely affected by these storms. In a related note, also making headlines on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, the state of Michigan is in line for nearly $7 billion from the infrastructure plan. Here's some of where it might go. This is from an article in Bridge, Michigan magazine. If President Joe Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill becomes law, Michigan will have billions of dollars to fix its decayed bridges and roads and improve access to broadband internet. The proposal, which was approved by the U.S. Senate this week, has yet to pass the House of Representatives, but has drawn praise from Michigan lawmakers who say it will lead to transformational investments in a state that has received poor marks for years with its infrastructure. In a quote from Senator Debbie Stabenow, a Democrat from Lansing, she says, quote, "What this bill is going to do is create resources to do a lot of the things we need to rebuild Michigan that are so critical," she told reporters Tuesday of this week. According to the proposal, Michigan is expected to get about $7.3 billion for highways and $563 million for bridge replacements over a 5-year period. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a fellow Democrat who campaigned as a gubernatorial candidate promising to, quote-unquote, fix the damn roads, said the bill would help modernize our infrastructure. More than a quarter of the state's bridges are structurally deficient or obsolete, and a 2016 state report recommended Michigan spend $4 billion more annually to update infrastructure. That from the American Society of Civil Engineers, which has said, quote, is reaching the end of its useful life and continues to threaten the state's lakes, rivers, drinking water, and public health and safety, end closed quote. In another quote, "This bold package will create millions of good-paying jobs, fix crumbling roads and bridges, help us build a clean, resilient energy grid, bolster public transportation, deliver clean drinking water to millions of families, and ensure every home has access to high-speed internet." That a quote earlier this week on the matter from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Among some of the line items that would be received from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is this Joe Biden administration infrastructure package that has been bipartisanly negotiated at both levels of Congress. A minimum of $100 million to provide broadband coverage and connect at least 398,000 Michiganders to the internet. Michigan's estimated 1.2 million homes, among those, about 1 in 4 lack a permanent fixed broadband access. $1 billion to improve public transportation, including rail lines and buses over a 5-year period. Money to replace pipes and address PFAS contamination, among other line items. And if there's been nothing else that's been more evident through these storms, it's the issues with our infrastructure that have been issues for a number of years. I mean, Ronnie and I used to talk about it all the time when we had these storms come through and when we talked to different government officials locally about the situation with the flooding and with the storms, that the infrastructure is a major problem. Yes, climate change definitely is having a severe impact on the situation, but ultimately, in addition to climate change, what is directly impacting the people of metropolitan Detroit, of the state of Michigan, is this faulty infrastructure that we have across the state that is not helping to mitigate flood situations, that is not helping to provide clean drinking water. Certainly the biggest story in the state of Michigan over the last decade plus has been the crisis with clean drinking water in the city of Flint, and that still has not been fully resolved, despite all the media coverage, despite all the hoopla, despite all the lawsuits and the criminal charges. That problem still hasn't been solved, and hopefully an infrastructure package like this, should it be passed, that money will go to good use to solve some of those problems and help prevent some of these issues from ongoing. And if nothing's been more evident, it's been the last several weeks, the last couple of months, as we've had these 100-year floods after 100-year floods after 100-year floods in less than 100 days.
You know, you talk about the water issue in Flint and that being a huge thing. Not necessarily in our area, but relatively in our area for the past decade. But that's been national headlines. When I'm in school in Miami, I tell people I'm from Michigan, and the first thing I would say at least 50% of people say to me is, "Oh, so you don't have good water?" And I'm like, my water's fine. I think I have the best tasting water ever of anywhere. No, West Bloomfield water.
Test that out. Yes.
Fantastic. But yeah, that's what people think about. So that's been an issue for a very, very long time. But then just talking more about the infrastructure and things we need to do about that. On the one hand, it is good. You talk about creating more job opportunities, definitely something we need. And then bringing up climate change, of course, that is a factor, but that can't be an excuse. Climate change is something we can't control, but we can control how we adapt to climate change and how we handle the situation. So that's just something we need to accept, and we need to adapt and move forward knowing that that's the situation. It's nothing new. We've known that climate change is a thing, so I don't think acting surprised or blaming anything on that is going to fix our situation. We need to just be strategic about it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of arguments that have been made about this issue over the past several weeks, over the past couple of months, when we've had these major storms and these 100-year floods repeatedly happening, where it seems like some people are in the camp of it's climate change and an infrastructure problem combined. Some are in the camp of it's just a climate change issue. Some are in the camp of it's just an infrastructure issue. But in reality, it is both. And both issues need to be addressed. The climate change issue can't be something that's immediately addressed necessarily. It's going to be over a decades-long period as we have to change our lifestyles and we have to change the way that we are energizing our grid and making sure that we're running cleaner operations and cleaner electricity to people while still providing the same services, but not taking as much of a toll on the environment. On the other side, this infrastructure situation is something that also isn't going to be necessarily immediately addressed, but you need to have the funding, you need to have the expertise in place, and you need to have a plan in place that modernizes this infrastructure to prevent issues like we've had in recent times. Lastly, also making headlines at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, some really unfortunate news regarding unemployment as it's been so critical to people all throughout the pandemic as people have lost their jobs or have had their work severely cut down, and as people continue to have a long debate about unemployment and the efficacy of the current system. 14 Michigan residents have been indicted on unemployment fraud charges. This in an article from the Detroit News. Federal prosecutors have charged 14 Southeast Michigan residents believed to be part of a scheme to defraud the unemployment system in several states, one of the largest arrests in the crackdown on pandemic unemployment insurance fraud. 9 were named in an initial indictment, and charges against 5 others believed to be involved in the plot were unsealed shortly afterward. The plan, allegedly developed by Rodney Harrison, included fake email accounts, stolen personal information under which claims were filed, and a California Airbnb rental from which fraudsters could collect California claims, the indictment said. The scheme continued from February 1 of 2020 through January 26th of this year and included claims filed in Michigan, California, Montana, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Texas, and Washington state, according to court filings. Federal prosecutors have charged a total of 37 individuals in relation to pandemic unemployment insurance fraud in Michigan in recent months. Those 37 are believed to have submitted about $20 million in fraudulent claims in Michigan and elsewhere. The $20 million makes up a small fraction of the quote-unquote hundreds of millions of dollars in fraudulent claims that are believed to have been submitted during a crush of claims early on in the pandemic. Still, Wednesday's announcement of charges marks one of the largest schemes prosecutors have cracked so far in a wide-ranging investigation into fraudulent attacks on Michigan's unemployment system. In a quote from the FBI's Detroit field office's Timothy Waters, special agent in charge, he says, quote, "Unfortunately, the conduct alleged in these indictments is not unique and resulted in the loss of millions of dollars meant for Americans throughout the country." In a quote from acting United States Attorney Simon Mosen, she said, "The individuals charged in the scheme attempted to exploit the pandemic, quote, for their own personal gain." She then continued, "These allegations are serious, and my office is committed to prosecuting any person who attempts to use the COVID-19 crisis to defraud the people of Michigan or the United States." Prior to Wednesday's charges, the U.S. Attorney has charged at least 13 people with scheming Michigan's unemployment system during the pandemic, and Attorney General Dana Nessel's office is investigating another dozen cases associated with unemployment fraud. 6 defendants have entered guilty pleas so far, and this is really unfortunate news because in this case, a lot of people that were trying to get unemployment claims early on in the pandemic especially were not able to get the money that they desperately needed to pay their rent, to put food on the table, to provide for themselves and their families when work was simply not there or was going away, and had either, at best, severe delays in getting those funds because they had to prove that they were who they said they were and that these claims that were in their name were fraudulent, or they just simply didn't get that money at all until well after the fact, and at that point, you are hemorrhaging money trying to pay your bills, trying to put food on the table, trying to keep the lights on, and somebody else is collecting money on your behalf and putting a bad mark on your name that you then are responsible for clearing up so that you can get what you need to sustain yourself and what, frankly, was entitled to you through this program.
Yeah, Tyler, that is very well put, how you said, at best, severe delays in their claims. And I think this unemployment issue is one of these things, unfortunately, where, you know, a year ago we were talking about it all the time, even back when Dave was doing the show with us every day, before Ronnie was even here. It was unemployment, unemployment, unemployment. And then, you know, for a while, not that it wasn't still an issue, but it wasn't as much making headlines. It faded. But I think that's been the case with a lot of these pandemic things. Recently, we haven't been hearing about them as much. And all of a sudden now, it seems like they are all major issues again, which none of us want to talk about it. None of us want to have to be dealing with this, but it's the reality. And at this point, you know, if things keep going the way they're going, it seems like all these issues are going to be brought back up because that's just the trend and the way things are.
And it doesn't necessarily seem like it's a big issue as it was back then right now. Now it's more of a talking point because of the situation with the quote-unquote labor shortage. And unemployment is being used by one side of the argument as a negative and by the other side of the argument as a point of evidence to say, well, this is why we need to be paid better wages because we're getting more on unemployment. Whereas then, it was a major issue because this is how people were sustaining their lives. And in the case of right now, in some cases, that very much still is the situation. But in other cases, it's not. So now it's more of a talking point than anything else. But situations like this, with such massive amounts of fraud in this case that are significant, this is hundreds of millions of dollars worth of fraudulent cases, that doesn't help the situation at all. It doesn't help the people that are legitimately trying to make claims to pay their bills, to pay for the essentials of life, and try to make ends meet while they're looking for other work. It doesn't help them, and it certainly doesn't help those that are trying to return to the workforce, but in a way that is fair and is worth their while as well. All those headlines and more, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. In addition, we make it easy for you to find accurate information from sources about COVID-19. So you're not digging through the weeds of the internet. There are more sources today than ever, and those sources, by and large, that you may be finding this information from are generally not accurate. We point you directly to people that have researched this information, that are on the front lines of this pandemic, that are the sources of this information to give you exactly what you need to make informed decisions about mask mandates in your office or wearing masks when you go out in public, about the vaccine, help you answer some of the questions that you may have, or get in contact with people that you should be getting in contact with to get those questions answered, because it is a choice and it is something that you need to be well informed about and you need to make an informed decision about. And instead of going through the weeds of the internet and finding a lot of disinformation and a lot of misinformation, you can go directly to the CDC's website, the state of Michigan's website, Oakland County's website, and many of our local municipalities here in southeastern Michigan, their direct COVID-19 pages. Just click on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus and select one of those links at the top of our page. We got a great show for you today. Coming up after the break, we'll speak with Oakland County Commissioner Marcia Gershenson. Later on in the hour, we'll hear from Jim Nash, the Water Resources Commissioner of Oakland County, talk about some of the things that Oakland County and the Water Resources Commission is working on with other partners in the local area to address some of those infrastructure issues and put some mitigations in place that may help the situation while we work on improving and restoring our infrastructure. In the second hour of the show, we'll speak with Dr. Gerald Hill, the Superintendent of West Bloomfield Schools. We'll talk with Lauren Azoury from West Bloomfield Parks, and we'll finish off the show later talking to Jon Witz from Soaring Eagle Arts, Beats, and Eats out of Royal Oak. That, all, and more coming up on the Megacast.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Trevor Project is sharing how you can support LGBTQ youth who may be at risk.
It's simple. Just show them that you care. C-A-R-E. Connect. If you noticed any warning signs of suicide from someone you know, reach out to them.
Ask. Ask directly. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It might be challenging, but talking about suicide is proven to reduce risk.
Respond. If they open up to you about their suicidal ideation, honor that trust by responding with compassion and empathy.
Empower. Talking openly is a great first step, but now you can empower them with the information and the support they need to improve their situation.
Learn more about how you can show them you care and help prevent LGBTQ youth suicide. Visit trvr.org/care.
To Sofia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Erica Jones here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to talk to you about various news stories related to COVID-19 and other issues all throughout southeastern Michigan and across the state on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, as well as online, civiccentertv.com, on our Facebook pages as well, and all throughout the state of Michigan on My Michigan TV, mymitv.com, and you can also find it on your smartphone and your smart TV app stores as well. We're pleased to be joined by our first guest. She is a Oakland County Commissioner. Joining us here on the show is Marcia Gershenson, joining us once again. Marcia, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I so enjoy being on your show.
Appreciate having you on. So let's start off by talking about the pandemic and some of the forms of assistance that are being provided to Oakland County residents at this time, as things are starting to trend a little bit back toward normal, but at the same time, with the situation we have right now with an uptick in some cases, with the Delta variant continuing to spread throughout the state of Michigan and around the United States, there are growing concerns, and at the same time, people are still struggling as a result of the pandemic, because just because things start trending back to normal, that doesn't necessarily mean that things are back to normal. There's a recent article from Click on Detroit from Local 4 TV. Nearly $4 million in assistance is available for Oakland County residents who are continuing to face hardships due to the pandemic. Can you give us a little bit of details about where some of that money is going toward and how people may qualify for that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is known as ARPA funding, and it's the second round of federal funding. Our county got $250 million in the first round, which was called CARES funding, that we dispersed into the public. We are one of the only counties in the country that was able to give away all that money. And it's funny, I often joke, I've never worked harder to give away money. Whoever thought that would be hard? But now we've got our second round, which is $250 million, and we've received half of that. And of that money, we have allocated certain portions for residents that are still struggling with their rent or their utilities. We are really focusing on mental health services. One of the agencies we're using to distribute this money is called OLSA, Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency. Have you done an interview with them yet?
We have not yet haven't had an interview with them, but
they're amazing. I mean, they're amazing, and you really should, because our viewers should know what a tremendous resource they are. And I was really happy that you mentioned our website, oakgov.com, because we are listing the easiest way for residents to get assistance. We're trying to get money out to small businesses. You know, it's hard not to notice when you drive down Woodward, the small businesses that have been struggling to hang on, and some haven't. But there is assistance. There's career counseling, and also, Tyler, I've been put on a committee that's overseeing areas that our youth can use to help them through this this adjustment, this transition time. So if any of our viewers or our listeners have any suggestions on areas, we're really looking to strengthen services for our youth, as well as families that are struggling. So there's a lot of money out there, and we want to get it to those who need it most.
We're joined by Marcia
It's a big
Gershenson.
challenge.
We're joined by Marcia Gershenson, Oakland County Commissioner, here on the Megacast, as we continue to talk about an influx of funding to the county that's being utilized to help residents who may still be struggling as a result of the pandemic and these
Tyler,
programs. Yes.
Let me also throw in there that so many people repeat the cliche that the reason we don't have enough workers is because of the unemployment. But childcare is a huge piece of that.
Yeah.
And so we have a committee now that is focused on how we can strengthen the childcare system. So with this money, we're looking not to just make short-term fixes, but to make long-term fixes. And I think 83 childcare facilities went out of business during the pandemic. And so we're looking at how we can assist, working with Oakland schools, working with our educational partners in the county, how we can strengthen childcare so that people that have gotten used to working at home and not having to pay for childcare have that option restored to them.
Commissioner, as these programs are going into place, and a lot of them being kickstarted from that American Rescue Plan money that's being allocated to the state and being allocated then also to counties and to local municipalities, what happens after we go through this federally allocated money that has helped supported these programs? Because eventually this money's not going to be there. This is a one-time thing, and it's not going to be something that's cyclical, but these programs are going to be majorly impactful on these families. How do we sustain those programs after this funding goes away?
That's a great question. It comes up all the time. How do we make programs sustainable? And one of the issues is we have 3 years to spend this money, which is different than the first round, and we have 5 years to implement it. So many of us, and let me give you an example. 3 Bloomfield Police, Birmingham Police, and Auburn Hills Police are working with Oakland County Community Mental Health and having a licensed therapist go out on some of their calls, some of their mental health calls. That's a program that we believe will be so beneficial that eventually it'll work itself into the budget of these organizations. And that's one thing we're really looking to help fund throughout the county, because right now it's a pilot program for 3 police departments. And I know our West Bloomfield Police Department's very interested in doing something. And our hope is that some of these programs, some of these changes are going to be so solid that they're going to become the norm, and we're going to be able to weed out some of the other programs that are being funded right now. It's a different world. The post-pandemic, it's a different world. So there's a lot of room to change things. And our belief is that some of these new programs are going to become sustainable. And there's so much more money coming. I mean, the broadband issue is just huge. Yeah. And we were thinking of tackling the broadband on the county level. However, if we're going to get federal money to really address it, we're going to wait, and we'll be able to back it up with county funds.
We're joined by Marcia Gershenson, Oakland County Commissioner, on the Megacast today, and you're also the subcommittee. You're the chair of the subcommittee that oversees the Oakland County Animal Shelter and Pet Adoption Center, and it's a national. And you recently had a nationally renowned expert on animal shelters evaluate the shelter, and she concluded by saying that they're doing amazing work, citing the statistics for their save rate, or the amount of animals that they do end up saving, instead of a lot of these shelters that do end up, in the case of shelters that are not no-kill shelters, end up having a lot of these animals eventually that they can't get into forever homes euthanized. Can you talk a little bit about the continued efforts of the Oakland County Animal Shelter and Pet Adoption Center throughout the pandemic?
Sure. that's an issue close to my heart. I'm a big supporter of animal welfare advocates, and we have a state-of-the-art animal shelter that a lot of the animal advocates have helped us design and develop so that we have best practices. But there's still a lot of work to be done. So what we decided is rather than us try to fix little things, is to bring in an expert who can do an assessment and tell us where we need to improve. And one of the areas is we've started a community cat program. Feral cats are a big issue in the county, but there's a way to address it that isn't very expensive, and it's called Trap, Neuter, and Release, where either a resident calls and says, I've got a colony, we'll ask them, can you bring that colony in, and can you pick that colony back up after they're neutered? Because evidence shows that returning these cats to the area once they're neutered is the best policy. If we keep them at the shelter, they'll be euthanized. So that's one example of a program that is being implemented right now. And there's new ways to address the public. There's new ways to do intake. And our goal is to make it the best community animal shelter. So we're now reaching out to smaller shelters, such as the Royal Oak shelter has been really helpful, and letting us know how we can assist the local shelters as well. But Tyler, before we get off, I just want 1 minute so I can talk to Erica about the U.
I was just about to chime in anyway. I have a question for you, but can I ask you one thing before we talk about the U? Because we could talk about it all day.
Yeah, we got to talk about the U for sure.
Of course, always. But what I wanted to ask you is, when people come in and they do want to adopt animals and give them that forever home, how do you make sure that that person is qualified and they're really going to give them the life that they're promising? Because you can't just hand away an animal to anyone when you don't really know a lot about them, because it could be a unsafe situation.
Exactly. So that's part of what the assessment revealed. There are now classes and courses that your administration, the people that greet the public, they will be trained now, and you do an interview with the people that want to interview. And it's no longer thought good policy to say, I want a certain breed, because most dogs are many different breeds, and very often they're labeled incorrectly. So there's different questions you ask the family that's looking for a dog. What is your priority? Are you looking for a watchdog? Are you looking for a dog to play with infants? Are you looking for more of a family dog? What are you looking for? So they do an assessment of the prospective adoptive parents. And that helps them direct them to a dog that will be good. So you're absolutely right. We are focusing more on getting to know the people that are coming in for the adoption.
Well, that's fantastic. Makes me very happy to hear. And take it away now. What do you want to?
For a tour. Let me take you for a tour. If you're an animal lover, contact me. We'll go for a tour.
You know, unfortunately, I am actually going back to Miami on Monday, but next time I'm in town, definitely I will be in contact with you, and we will do that. But speaking of which, I am going back Monday, so what do you want to talk about?
Well, my son is a graduate, and we often joke that he said, Mom, I'm going to U of M, but not the one you want me to go to. And it turned out to just be an amazing place for him. And he's become very successful in the music industry. And he just did a panel. And I wonder if you saw it. It was a panel of my son, who's now the director of the Oklahoma Thunder arena and booking. And the graduate that did the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and they talked about challenges in the entertainment industry, and it was through the School of Communication. So I just wanted to encourage you to be sure and check that out if you're not already involved.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little guilty of not keeping up to date with my Miami email when I'm home. You know, check this email more for work, but definitely I'm glad you brought that up because I am obviously in the School of Communication, so I will definitely be looking at it. What's your son's first name?
Drew. D-R-E-W. So look it up, and you can always contact me if you've got any questions. I'll get you in contact with him.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And I'll be in contact to take a tour of the animal shelter for sure. So thank you for that offer.
So I also wanted to mention another new exciting initiative, which are body cams. So after the George Floyd tragedy, more attention was given on how can we strengthen our police departments, our locals, and our county police department to become more community driven. And there's been a big need for body cams, and they're very expensive. But there was a grant available for the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. So we oversee 15 communities. Well, that leaves out a lot of communities, and some of the ones that don't contract with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, they've initiated body cams on their own. I believe Waterford has, and there are other communities that are paying for it. But we are very excited to announce that we're in the process of having body cams on our Oakland County sheriffs. It's something that we feel is very important, and then we'll be reaching out to the other local communities that are not partners with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department to see how we can help them fund these cams.
We're joined by Marcia Gershenson, Oakland County Commissioner, on the Megacast. Marcia, just another 30 seconds or so before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else you'd like to mention or that would be important for our audience to know?
Well, I'm just wondering if anybody has any suggestions out there, if they see a need, they're in the workforce or they're not in the workforce and they're having trouble getting back into the workforce. My information is very available, and I would encourage anybody to reach out to me or any of your local electeds because we're in touch. We've got this pot of money, and we're looking to get it out to help the most people. That's the hardest thing, is to find out where the need is and to get to those people. So that's a real commitment of mine and of Oakland County.
Well, Commissioner Gershenson, we appreciate having you on. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Go Canes.
Go green. That's what I say on my
green
end of it. But we appreciate it. Commissioner Marcia Gershenson with us from Oakland County. We'll take a quick break, and we'll keep it in Oakland County on the other side of the break, and we'll address some of those climate change and infrastructure issues with Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner Jim Nash. We'll discuss stormwater, climate change, and some mitigation tactics that may be utilized and can be utilized here in the local area to help alleviate some of the flooding issues we've experienced due to the recent storms. That coming up after this short break. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
To Sofia and Gabriel, even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner Jim Nash with us now on the Oakland County Megacast. Jim, thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. So, Jim, over the last few weeks with all these storms, it's really taken a significant toll on our communities, particularly with the flooding. How have these storms been affecting our water systems, especially in response to these storms and trying to recover, but then having another one come in after and another one come in after, and just having these repeat bombardments of water in our communities?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've lived here coming on 30 years. My wife grew up here, a while ago. And this is a whole different way, a whole different weather patterns than we've ever experienced in the past. The universities of Michigan have a consortium studying climate change, and this is all part of climate change. What's going to affect us most in this Great Lakes region is going to be extreme rain events and storms. So this is something that's going to be coming, and this is, a warning year. This is the wettest I've ever seen it in my life. I lived in Florida for 15 years, and the soil is more wet here permanently this summer than I've ever experienced. I can't even get my lawnmower to the front of my house because it's landlocked. I can't get past all the swamp in my backyard. So the ground is so saturated that every rain that's coming doesn't have a chance to go into the ground. It just comes right off it in sheets. So this is affecting combined sewer systems like in Detroit and some of, the bottom part of Oakland County. We're not aware of any flooding events in our systems in Oakland County, but they got way more rain in that storm, 2 weeks ago now. They got 7 inches in some places. We got up to 4 inches in parts of Oakland County. But again, this is on top of previous rain, so all of that is coming off. None of that is really getting absorbed into the ground. So that's why we're experiencing much more flooding events from the same amount of rain that in normal conditions wouldn't cause flood events.
Well, Jim Nash, Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner, with us on the show. And Jim, maybe it's just a repeated nature of these major storms and this major flooding over the past several weeks that's increased the frustration. But you mentioned climate change. It's not just climate change that's a problem here. It's also just the general infrastructure of our local area here in southeastern Michigan and throughout the state of Michigan as well. That's seen the toll being taken on it and has been really impacting a lot of families, especially in areas like Dearborn and especially downriver in places like Detroit as well. Our infrastructure, frankly, to put it lightly, stinks. And climate change is not really going to help is not going to be a help of that going forward. So what are organizations like yours, the Oakland County Water Resources Commission, with partnerships with GLEWA and with the state of Michigan and so on, doing to plan going forward to not only combat climate change at the state level, but to combat what impact climate change is going to ultimately continue to have on these systems that are at play?
Absolutely. So the large systems that carry water and sewage to Detroit for treatment, for other things like that, are not as old as the community systems in a lot of our communities. Pontiac system, a lot of the pipes underground are between 80 and 120 years old. So that the age of those pipes makes it more likely when there are events that there will be issues with the infrastructure. We invest in that. We have a 20-year, we're like 4 years now in the 20-year plan to replace a huge chunk of the infrastructure in Pontiac with much more, with newer, much more advanced infrastructure that should be more capable of handling these long-term storms. The problem is that this also affects the affordability in a lot of communities. Like in Detroit, if they had the unlimited resources, they could have invested a lot more in getting rid of these older infrastructure issues that they have. But unfortunately, the only way until recently was to bill the ratepayers for it. So their water was already unaffordable. If they did the huge investments they need to do only on the backs of ratepayers, it would make it impossible for a lot of people to afford water. So right now we have several potential inputs of money for infrastructure that we really, really need. I've expressed it directly to Senator Peters, our Congress folks, in every direction I can. There's potential now for funding from the county, from the American Recovery Act, that we're looking to try to spend in some of our communities that are in desperate need of help. And we're looking at this infrastructure bill that's coming, that we can use this money to do the work we need to do without hitting the ratepayers so hard. So this is something that we really need to be investing in strongly. I've talked to folks from the state level, the federal level. They're very interested in doing this. We already have some state and local funds that are available that we're looking to tap into to do these kind of works, to replace these water mains, these sewer mains, and the combined sewer systems in some areas. We're also working with Detroit. We're working in a project, so we're going to allow more flow from one of our separated sewer systems into Detroit for cleaning, and invest about $35 million in green infrastructure in Detroit itself to limit about 100 million gallons of rainwater that gets into that combined system that causes these overflows. So we're looking to use green infrastructure. This is the way of mimicking how water is absorbed in nature, to limit how much gets into our stormwater system. So long term, these are the things that need to be done. We're working with local communities, we're working with our regional partners and our state and federal partners to make this happen. And this funding opportunity that's coming is incredibly important to get this done. So we're really pushing hard for this. We need to get these works done. Like you said, between the combination of infrastructure, ages and issues, and the coming of climate change, bringing more storms, this is something that has to be done. If we don't, we're going to be left with more disasters in the future. So, and it's not just us. You remember 4 or 5 years ago now, up in UP, Houghton got hit by a storm that destroyed roads, bridges, downtowns. It had a huge effect on local infrastructure with a very unurbanized area. So this affects all of us in this region, in this whole, Great Lakes Basin.
With what's going on right now, Jim Nash, Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. With what's going on right now, people want solutions and people want to see there's some progress being made, even as we're looking at this potential funding coming in. But frankly, we don't know necessarily if we're going to get that funding or to what extent we are going to get that. So while that is being discussed at multiple levels, statewide, federally, so on and so forth, what is being done at the local level, particularly here in Oakland County, to work to mitigate these issues in a way that is still affordable and is not going to make a major hit on the taxpayers in order to do a major overhaul necessarily, but helps to mitigate these problems and maybe prevent severe outcomes because of these storms that are coming in?
I gotcha. Okay, so the way all this is done is each individual community has their ordinances, their processes, all the things they do. Like with the 14 communities that have contribute flow to the George W. Kuhn Retention Treatment Basin, that's a combined sewer system in the southeastern corner of the county. We've worked with all those communities to develop their development ordinances, to include green infrastructure, to include ways of people when they're redeveloping land, to put things in as part of that process to limit how much water gets off their properties. And they can often use that water themselves for irrigation later. They can collect it in basins and then use it for watering their lawns and plants. And there's all kinds of uses they can get out of this. And when you're doing that, it limits how much gets into that system every time it rains. So again, communities are doing that all over Michigan and the Great Lakes region because of this impact of climate change. And at the same time, this is more, it's cheaper to put in, it's cheaper to operate and maintain over time because you're not putting in giant things underground, pipes and pumps and tanks and things that gray infrastructure has to deal with. So you're limiting what's get into those systems. And that in smaller storms, it limits pollution because pollution comes off of separated stormwater systems. If you can limit how much gets into our lakes, rivers, and streams, that helps the health of those lakes, rivers, and streams. So at the same time, we're looking to mitigate climate change by using less carbon intensive and methane intensive power. I'm at a Pontiac plant that serves 13 communities now, their wastewater treatment plant. We put in a new system that takes the sewage solids that we normally would landfill for $1 million or $2 a year. We're turning them into methane in a process called anaerobic digestion and thermal hydrolysis. We're taking almost all of the energy available from those solids out of it in terms of methane in a closed system. So we're going to get entirely off of fossil fuels and use the solids that we are already processing to run that plant and potentially run a fleet of vehicles, compressed natural gas vehicles from that, getting vehicles and all our plants off of fossil fuels, which is what contributes to climate change. So there's lots of things my industry can do to help climate change resiliency and mitigation. And I'm pushing that as hard as I can, and regionally and statewide, that's something that's really coming into focus now.
Jim Nash was with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner. And Commissioner, as you talk about green solutions that are being planted, being put in place, not only on individual community levels, but being suggested and being assisted by the Water Resources Commission as well to help mitigate some of these issues, what can the average person, the average taxpayer, expect to see as far as results from putting these green solutions in place? How much of an impact can green solutions have on preventing severe outcomes from these 100-year floods, from these major storms that come through, as opposed to or in absence of revamped systems or those gray infrastructure systems?
Well, like I said, we have to kind of do both. We have to concentrate on really two things: fixing those systems we have and making them capable of holding more water in the long term as these storms get bigger. And at the same time, building green infrastructure. Individuals can do that. You know, you have something called rain gardens. You have rain barrels that can hold water. You can use for your own land, irrigation, and then once the storm's over, you just open the tap, let it slowly come out instead of being part of that storm flow. There's lots of things people can do. Anybody that lives on a lake, river, or stream, it's called riparian land, where your land is right up against water. You can put something called a riparian buffer in it. If you grow your lawn right up to the shore, and then every time it rains, anything you fertilize that lawn with gets right in that water, that's what creates algae and bacterial blooms. It closes beaches. It causes all kinds of issues around that. So if you live on that kind of properties, you can put in a little buffer, a little 4-foot strip of more absorbent land that you put in native plants that have very deep roots. So when it comes off that lawn, instead of going right into the water, it gets absorbed into the ground in those roots. And all those fertilizers don't grow the algae and bacteria in the water. If you put in a rain garden, some communities are doing what's called utilities, stormwater utilities. So instead of just part of your water bill or part of your tax base, each home is rated on how much water comes off that property. And then if you pay for that much water, so your share of what it costs to run a system. But then if you put in things like rain gardens and rain barrels and things that hold that water on your property, then you would have to pay less for that stormwater fee, because you're not producing as much water into the system as you used to. And every property owner that connects less into the system means there's less water coming into that in a flood condition. If we can get entire communities to do those kind of green infrastructure projects, then we're going to have we will have much less impact of these storms on our existing gray infrastructure. So we have to do both. We have to work on the gray infrastructure using this infrastructure funding that we're looking to gain, and we have to make sure that we do these green infrastructure processes both individually, as businesses, as communities, and develop these ways of limiting how much stormwater gets into our systems in a storm. And again, whether it's if it's a combined system in Oakland County, all of our combined systems are treated. The water that's released is cleaner than the water that's already in those rivers. And what we're doing is the most impact of stormwater is in these separated stormwater systems. There's no cleaning, nothing happens. It goes right off the roads and parking lots into the nearest lake, river, and stream, carrying with it everything, oil, gas, brake dust, all those things. So we have to make sure that what we're doing is not going to have an impact in the future. That's sustainability, and that's what I base my decisions on.
We're joined by Jim Nash here on the Oakland County Megacast. He's the Oakland County Water Resources Commissioner. Jim, just another 30 seconds or so with us. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know today?
You know, if you're having issues, let us know. If there's basement flooding, you need to report to your community and to my office within 45 days that you've had some kind of basement incident. Please don't hesitate to do that. If there's an issue that is in our system, we're responsible for that. If it's not us, or if it's something that's an overwhelming amount of water, that's something we'll have to look forward in the future. And we're looking to make sure that people are protected as these storms increase in volume over the years. We want to make it less likely for people to get flooded. So that's our guiding principle.
Well, Jim, we thank you very much for joining us on today's show.
Thanks for having me.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Erica Jones. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. You can also find us on local cable television in Oakland County on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Both of our cable television stations are on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Find us on the web, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15, facebook.com/LakesFM, CivicCenterTV.com. Click on our Watch Live link or view us on My Michigan Television, MYMITV.com, as well as on your smartphone on the My Michigan TV app and on your smart TV on the My Michigan TV Smart TV app as well. All throughout the state of Michigan, we have content from all walks of life, all areas of the state, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, North, South, East, and West on My TV, My Michigan Television for Michigan. Well, as we approach the fall and schools are preparing to go back into session in person, in most cases, there's a lot to consider, especially with the Delta variant going around and and growing concerns as case numbers are on an uptick, not only in Oakland County, but throughout the local area in the state of Michigan and across the United States. And to talk more about how that is affecting the West Bloomfield School District, Dr. Gerald Hill is next on the show. He's the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District. Dr. Hill, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Tyler. Pleased to be here.
Pleased to have you with us. So as we are approaching the beginning of the school year here in the West Bloomfield area, how has the recent uptick in COVID-19 cases and the concern with the Delta variant impacted the plans that were already in place for this fall, and maybe what changes might be in place as a result?
Sure. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, the Delta variant is impacting our planning. We are looking at devising a plan. As you know, we want to be in school, face-to-face, in person, 5 days a week. And in order to do that, we need to implement layers of protection and defense against COVID-19 and the Delta variant. Consequently, my team and I, we've developed the West Bloomfield School District COVID-19 mitigation guidelines that we will be following. Those guidelines are basically in order, we put them in place in order to be proactive related to COVID-19 as opposed to reactive, although there's a little bit of both. As you mentioned, the data looks alarming at this point. I mean, it's doubled over the last 2-week period from the previous 2-week period. However, the cases are not concentrated in the school population as of this time. A couple of weeks ago, there were about 99 school-age cases in Oakland County. The past 2 weeks, there have been about 262 cases Oakland County-wide. So our plan is a combination of looking at several factors. We're looking at the CDC transmission rates, what they are, and they're high in Oakland County right now. And then we're also looking at the prevalence of COVID-19 within our Oakland County, but more specifically within our school district. And so consequently, it's a combination of factors, and it's not quite so simple as when transmission rates equal X, we will do Y. And so it triggers a conversation, a decision, and really conversations with the Oakland County Health Department.
And continuity of learning is really important as well. And earlier on in the pandemic, near the end of the previous school year, we had talked to Ken Gutman over in the Walled Lake Consolidated School District about what they were doing in the case of COVID-19 cases popping up in their schools or outbreaks beginning to spread throughout a school, where they would maybe shut a school down and convert to virtual or hybrid for a period of time instead of the entire school district, as a means of mitigating that specific situation over several days, over a couple of weeks, and continuing as much in-person learning as is possible. And in the case of preventing, you want to at least start with preventing cases in your schools before, so that you don't have to, like you said, react to those outbreaks. But in the event that there are outbreaks, because of the funding situation right now, and because of the requirements really going back to what was really the norm before the pandemic coming up in this school year, are there any concerns that with the outbreaks that are happening, even though they're not necessarily among school-age children, even though school-age children really aren't around each other at this moment in time because they're not in school, is there any concern on the funding side that some of these outbreaks, should they pop up in schools, particularly elementary schools, because people under 12 years old are not at this time eligible to be vaccinated, that could impact what's already a treacherous situation with school funding?
Yeah, and I don't think that we're concerned about the school funding being a factor. Our primary concern is with the health and safety of the students and staff. And so because of that, we've implementing several mitigation strategies. Those strategies, we are strongly encouraging wearing of face masks. We're not requiring it at this point in time. We also are going to be practicing frequent hand washing, use of hand sanitizers. Our buildings will be cleaned and regularly cleaned to take care of that. We're going to be implementing our filtering of air throughout, getting more fresh air into the schools. And so we have several mitigation strategies. One of the things that we will be doing differently, we will be having field trips for students this year. However, when they are on field trips, we will require mask wearing. And the other required mask wearing is when students are on school buses. And so every morning, students that take a bus to school, they will be required to wear a mask, as that's a requirement of the CDC. Once they get to school, we strongly encourage the mask wearing. If we reach a point where the COVID transmission and presence is high, then it's a possibility, after consulting with Oakland County health authorities, that we may implement mask wearing as a requirement. At this point, we're not there yet, but it could become a possibility. The other thing I'd like to stress is that we really encourage people 12 years age and up to get the vaccination. Currently, we're at about 70% in Oakland County. It would be great if that was at 80 to 85% or higher. Then we wouldn't be having the kind of outbreaks that we're seeing, not only here, but across the United States.
So, Dr. Hill, the conversation about whether or not masks will be worn in classrooms has been a very, very hot topic lately. And like you said, it's strongly encouraged, but not necessarily required at this point. So I'm wondering, how does that apply to teachers? Because when I think about it, if I had a strongly encouraged but not necessarily required policy at my school, I feel like I would read the room a little bit, and maybe if my teacher or professor in my case was wearing one, then I would kind of feel like maybe that's what I should do. But if they weren't, then I would be like, well, they don't care, so I don't really care either. Do staff have the same protocols and guidelines as the students do, or is it different for them?
No, the staff have the same guidelines as students do. One of the differences, the majority of our staff, I don't have the exact number, are vaccinated. And so they have a layer of protection that is there with the vaccination. But we will be, if we implemented mask wearing throughout, then that would apply to the staff as well as the students. Right now, we're strongly encouraging, but not requiring mask wearing of students or staff. Now, I will say that if the data continues to compound like it has over the last several weeks, we may be requiring masks as soon as August 30th, which is our first day of school. But right now, it's not warranted.
We're joined by Dr. Gerald Hill, the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District, on the Megacast today. And Dr. Hill, as we are approaching the beginning of the school year, schools will be going back in session here in West Bloomfield. They will be in person, and a lot of questions are certainly going to be asked about the progress over at the new West Bloomfield Middle School location up on Orchard Lake Road. Can you give us a status update of that facility? How far along is it in the construction?
Sure, Tyler, we're really excited about that. The construction is moving along fine. At this point in time, we're doing a lot of work both inside and outside of the school. As you drive by, you can see all the work being done on the parking areas and behind the school on the ball fields. Inside, we're about ready to get all of the exterior work completed. So come fall, we will be able to enclose the building and heat it and work throughout the winter. Our timeline right now is to have that school ready for installing furniture as early as April of 2022. So we're excited about that. And when you walk through the building, when I walk through the building, you can see the elements definitely taking shape, and it's an exciting project that we're all working on.
Is other construction also happening throughout the school district? Of course, we've witnessed some of it right here at Green Media Center with the construction in the parking lot at Green Media Center and Chico Elementary School. Can you give us an update on that? What can parents and students expect when they come back to Chico in a few weeks to begin the school year?
Well, when they come back to Chico, as of right now, August 23rd is when we anticipate that parking lot being completed,
okay.
At least during that week. So we will be ready for the start of school on August the 30th. And so that's been a challenging timeline this summer, mostly due to acquisition of materials, but I believe all the materials are in. Of course, all the rain we've been having has slowed it down a little bit as well, but that project is scheduled to be completed.
Dr. Gerald Hill with us on the Megacast. He's the superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District. Dr. Hill, just another minute or so with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important for parents, students, faculty to know as we approach the school year?
So our plan that we spoke of earlier, that's being sent out this afternoon to all families. And our Board of Education worked on it at our Monday night board study session last Monday. And they will make final actions in terms of approval of the plan on August the 23rd. We encourage everybody to read through the plan, to look at the mitigation strategies that we have in place. And in the meantime, if you have not been vaccinated, please get a vaccine. And if you're able to, and we strongly encourage the mask wearing. In terms of the school starting, we are so excited to have all the boys and girls back to face-to-face, in-person learning experience. Our staff is really excited about it. I know the students are excited, and we look forward to a fantastic year in the West Bloomfield School District.
We appreciate having you on. We'll definitely plan to speak to you and others from the school district more as we approach the beginning of the school year and as we get into this now third school year that we've been involved in some capacity with the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Gerald Hill, superintendent of the West Bloomfield School District, with us today on the Megacast. We'll take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we'll transition from our local schools to our local parks, and we'll be joined by Parks Naturalist Lauren Azoury from West Bloomfield Parks. That coming up next on the Megacast.
Here's one more reason to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your shot to win. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Erica Jones in our studios here at Green Media Center in West Bloomfield Township. We appreciate you joining us on Civic Center TV, on Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, 89.3 Lakes FM, and My Michigan Television, or My on mymitv.com, as well as on your mobile phone, on your computer, via your web browser, or on your smart TV. You can find it in many app stores, including on your smart TV, and get it right there on your television anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, streaming. It is My Michigan Television. Television from Michigan all across the state, including right here in our local area where we have plenty of parks and natural areas to enjoy, and people definitely over the course of the pandemic have taken advantage of their local parks and recreational area to have fun with their families in a safe way that's outdoors and engage with nature as well. And to talk about that and so much more that's going on here in the West Bloomfield area, we're pleased to be joined by Parks Naturalist Lauren Azoury from West Bloomfield Parks. Lauren, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Tyler, for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So we're still in the thick of the summer, and there's still some programs that are continuing to go on to help engage some of the kids in our local area and keep them learning, get them back into the swing of learning as they approach the school year. If you may, just give us an overview of some of those programs that are available as we get into the thick of August and approach the school year in September.
Yeah, so we're almost at the end of our summer camp season. So we made it through. It's been great. This is our last week of camp, so we are going to miss having the big groups of kiddos on our back tents and at our Drake Sports Park for Camp WB. But the campers have been doing a great time exploring, been able to canoe and go fishing. And so with that wrapping up, we're kind of starting to think about fall. So our fall guide just came out. It's like hot off the presses. So we're excited to have back a lot of our events that we weren't able to have last fall. As you know, last fall was a little crazy, right? So we're excited to gather again in a safe way and bring back some of the classics that people love so much. So our camp out is back again. We're introducing a new event. That's our family block party at the end of September. That'll just be like a big old dance party for families to join us. And then we have group hay rides again. So nothing says fall like being outside with our hay rides. It's a private experience for your group only, which is great. So you can do your neighborhood group or your church group or whatever group you want to do with your families. And there's nature stops along the way. So it's not just your typical hay ride. It's really engaging and fun. You get to learn a few things along the ride and view the beautiful marsh bank in the fall. As you know, the colors there are amazing and that time of year.
We're joined by Lauren Azoury from West Bloomfield Park. She is one of their parks naturalists joining us today on the Megacast. And as people are continuing to engage with their local parks during the nice weather that we've had, not in the last couple of days, but generally over the last several weeks where it's been nice and sunny and warm, some of the places that people love to go are for a walk on our West Bloomfield Trail. And right now, what are some of the more interesting things that people may encounter as they're walking on the trails?
Well, yeah, so today we're going to talk a lot about different insects. This is the time of year to really look for all the little things and the unappreciated creatures that really should be appreciated. Now, I know the mosquitoes are high this year for sure, so that's one thing that I keep hearing from people as well as just experiencing my own. They like this rain that we've been getting and the heat. But there's other really unique insects out there to look for, and there's a lot of great native wildflowers blooming right now, so it's a great time to look for pollinators like bumblebees and butterflies on those cone flowers and those black-eyed Susans and the Queen Anne's laces out there blooming right now too. So it's a great time to look for wildflowers in our prairies and our like grass areas, as well as look for unique insects and pollinators.
We're joined by Lauren Azoury, Parks Naturalist from West Bloomfield Parks, with us today on the Megacast. And you have 15 Monarch Caterpillars with you in the nature room there. So you can talk about some of those and their migration journey all the way from Mexico here to the local area. When does that start, and what's kind of the process that they go through on their journey right here to our local area?
Monarchs are a really fascinating species. They're one of my favorites, and they're just amazing, really, truly. And they play a really important role in the ecosystem. So they are a pollinator, so they help all of our flowers to bloom. They help all of our food to grow. They need those important nectar sources. And as you said, they migrate, which is crazy that they are able to travel that far. So a lot of monarchs travel up to 3,000 miles. Now, they don't do it all in one day, and that starts coming up here pretty soon is when the monarch migration will start. end of August, early September, we start to lose nectar sources here, and it starts to get colder. So they fly to Mexico, sometimes parts of Florida, but they head south and they take stops along the way. So those late fall flowers that bloom, like our goldenrod that blooms this beautiful gold flower, is a great nectar source for them. They need to have that energy to continue their 3,000-mile journey. So the last generation to be born here, which are the caterpillars that I have today, will become butterflies, and they'll make their journey to Mexico. And then a new generation will come back to us in the early spring again next year. They'll have 5 more generations here in our Michigan summer before they go back to Mexico again in the fall. So the caterpillars are very tiny when they're first born. They're about the size of your eyelash. Okay. But the adults are get to be very large, and they molt and change about 5 times before they're ready to go into a chrysalis. So we keep these in the nature room or in our outdoor natural play area. We use them for programs so that we can really get people up close and personal and engage and really appreciate them and learn more about their importance in nature and what we can do to help them.
So go ahead. Sorry. So I'm very fascinated by the fact that you say it starts off as the size of your eyelash and then it gets that big, and that almost looks like it could be the size of your pinky finger, right? Am I getting a good read on that?
Yeah, they're large.
So what's it like to be able to watch that transformation? And do you just come in every single day? Because obviously, you know, day to day, I'm sure you can't notice that much of a difference, but will it just be all of a sudden a week later, you're like, wow, that really got big? Or just walk me through what it's like to witness that.
It is so cool to watch, and I've watched it for many summers now, and it still amazes me. Like, I still just get, we call it nature magic, how it works. It's just really crazy how it works. But it starts as an egg underneath a milkweed leaf. So the adult butterflies are smart enough to know that the only thing their caterpillars will eat are milkweed. That's a special plant. It's their host plant. So as soon as they hatch from that egg, they eat their eggshell, and then they start to eat the milkweed. So they have their food source right there, and the female butterflies know to do that so that they have their food right there. And then they're only in the egg for 3 to 4 days. They're caterpillars for about 14 days. And then they're in their chrysalis again for about 14 days until they finally emerge as an adult butterfly. So the other day I was out of the office for 2 days, and our other naturalists were caring for them and feeding them. And I came back and I was like, whoa, what happened? They're huge. Like, it seemed like it happened out of nowhere. But yeah, they go from eyelash size to, I mean, just for like size comparison, like they're the size of my finger pretty much now. And these are the last instars. So they molt 5 times. It's called an instar. And they're in their end here. So they're going to start to climb up soon and make a little J, hang upside down, and become a chrysalis. And then their whole body, I mean, this is crazy, their whole body basically inside the chrysalis turns to mush, and then they piece it all back together as a butterfly.
We're joined by Lauren Azoury here on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the Parks Naturalist over at West Bloomfield Parks, joining us today. And it's also praying mantis season here in Michigan. So what about this time of the year inspires them to be out in such more mass than other parts, either in the summer or in other seasons of the year?
So they're out in the early spring, but they're so tiny that people don't see them. Okay. So all insects go through metamorphosis, just like we talked about how the caterpillar changes into the butterfly. Well, a praying mantis has to go through metamorphosis and change as well. So as a nymph, as a baby, they are wingless, so they don't fly. And they're very, very tiny. When they're born, they can fit their whole body on a penny. They're even smaller than that, like teeny, teeny, tiny. And their egg case is laid this time of year. Pretty soon here, the adult females are going to lay an egg case on a branch, and then when they emerge, they're going to be in that egg case all winter, and they're going to emerge and hatch out they're going to hatch in early spring again. So right now, those babies have hatched, they've grown, they've shed, they've gotten bigger, and now what we're seeing is the adults. So they've been around, but we just don't see them as much because the adults are much more obvious, much larger, and they can fly, so they're easier to view too. So the next thing to look for, which is pretty cool if you find one, is their egg case. It's made to look like foam that hardens, and it's on an empty stem. So oftentimes you find it hanging off of a stem that has no more leaves on it. If you find one, leave it there because it's going to stay there all winter. And then the nymphs, the baby praying mantis, will hatch in the early spring of next year. So they survive all winter in that egg case.
So you mentioned where the babies will be found, where those egg cases will be found, but when the praying mantises, either the nymphs, the baby mantises, or the adult praying mantises eventually do form, where do we commonly find them here in our local area?
I haven't seen very many lately, but it doesn't mean they're not out there. They actually have really good camouflage. And oftentimes they like to be they're carnivores, so they like to be where other insects are. So forest, field edges, things like that, where they find other bugs to eat. So of course you got to live where your food is, right? So they live where all the other insects are at. So usually forested areas and edges of fields on plants. But I guess, again, they've got super good camouflage. They're like that green color, so they like to hang out on green plants to camouflage themselves, hang out on leaves waiting for bugs, because they're really good hunters. They're predators of other insects.
We're joined by Lauren.
Some people love them in their garden.
We're joined by Lauren Azoury. She is the Parks Naturalist for West Bloomfield Parks, joining us today on the Megacast. And Lauren, as we get further on into the pandemic and things start to slowly reopen, but there's also some concerns with, of course, the Delta variant and a recent uptick in cases. In terms of activities at the Recreation and Activity Center there in the Nature Room, is that reopened to the public yet, or is that, or your programs generally anything that would be normally indoors, are those still generally virtual?
We have actually a lot of outdoor programming. So we do offer some virtual. You can do a nature appointment with a naturalist for your school group or your community group or just for your family. So we are offering virtual as an option, but most of our programming currently is outdoors. So we have a tent adjacent to our building, and that's our programming space right now. We also are not confined to the tent. We use our trails for many of our programs. So we use the trails behind the Recreation Center. We use the trails at Marshbank Park. We use our nature preserve, which is beautiful and lots to explore there. So the plan is for the nature room to be reopened in the fall on a limited basis. As you can see, it's a really cool room. We've got great animal ambassadors that live here and help us teach, but it's not very big. It can't fit very many people. So we're going to reopen it slowly and carefully, and it's going to be for 1 or 2 families at a time. So we would have our program outside and then allow a family to come in to explore and learn more indoors as well. So in the fall, at our open hours is outdoor explore hours, as well as at some of our programs, families will be able to come back into the nature room and look at the beautiful paintings and check out the habitats that we have here and learn in another way besides just being in our outdoor space.
Lauren Azoury with us on the Megacast. She's the Parks Naturalist over at West Bloomfield Parks, joining us today. And Lauren, if people are interested in some of these programs, finding more information or signing up for them, how can they get more information on that? How can they sign up or get in contact with you or one of the other naturalists at parks in order to get their questions answered?
Yeah, wbparks.org has a lot of great information. It lists all of our special events. There's a nature page as well, so it has all of our contact information. Myself, Kathy, and Annabelle, all of our nature team are available. We love answering questions. We get really unique phone calls that probably not everybody at their job usually gets, so it's fun to hear what's going on in people's backyards, what's going on in the community as far as what they're seeing on the trails and what they're curious about. But wbparks.org is a great place to find our programs, but also our social media. So you can follow West Bloomfield Parks on Facebook or Instagram. We do a fair amount of posts to show you what we're up to and what we've been doing, as well as sometimes we'll post just nature fun facts too.
And in terms of your fall guide, it has all those programs in there and more information. When can people expect to get that fall guide? How will they obtain it? And if they're not necessarily getting it at their home address in West Bloomfield, or they want to see what's going on here in West Bloomfield and one of our neighboring communities, where can they get that information?
Yeah, so the fall guide is at the post offices. Some of our residents may have already received it. Okay. If they haven't, it's coming soon. But if you're not a resident or haven't received one, you can always call us at our front desk here, 248-451-1900, and we'll put you on the list to mail it. But it's also available digitally, so you can find it on our website at wbparks.org as well. And there's a lot of great programs for all ages. We have special senior programs. We do senior hikes, as well as our senior programming team offers some great programs for our seniors. We have family programs, we have youth-only programs. So no matter your age, there's something for you. Good way to explore our parks and get outside.
So you mentioned that the nature room is still closed for the time being, but there are outdoor programs going on. Looking at your website, you do have Outdoor Explorer open hours, and the outdoor natural play area is also open to the public at certain times. When are those availabilities there for parents and families or other interested people that would like to participate in some of those programs?
Yeah, our outdoor natural play area is a really unique space that really engages kids with nature, as well as adults. We have a compost bin and a rain barrel and some great examples of what you can do in your homes there to view and pick our brains about how to implement those. And oftentimes we'll bring out one of our live animals if the weather is good for that. So the Outdoor Explore hours, our outdoor natural play open hours, they vary, but they're listed on our website. Usually they're Tuesday evenings and Friday afternoons and select weekend days. But that, again, can be on the website, and all the hours are listed in the brochure as well.
Well, Lauren, we appreciate having you on. Just another minute or two with us before we say goodbye today. Anything else that would be interesting for our audience to know or important for our audience to know at this time?
Oh, let's see. Well, right now is a great time to go exploring outdoors. So before you get back into the classrooms and back into your routines, like appreciate what's out there and blossoming, but also look out for what we do in our parks and to hopefully inspire you guys to do in your yards to help nature. So one of our main pillars here in our strategic plan is conservation education. And so pollinator gardens are blooming right now. We have a pollinator garden that we've installed at Marshbank Park where we worked with a Girl Scout troop, and it has become, as we were talking about monarchs today, it has become an official Monarch Waystation. So you can look this up online at monarchwatch.org and see where all the different waystations are. And you can do this in your yard too by providing milkweed host plants as well as nectar plants for our monarch friends. So we have a few examples in our parks for you to be inspired by and hopefully plant one of your own. And along with our strategic plan, we are working on our master plan, and we love to hear what our residents want more of and what we can do to provide for our community. So be looking for that on our website soon. We're going to be doing surveys of our residents on what to include in our master plan for the next 5 years.
Well, Lauren, we appreciate having you on. Erica, did you have another question there? Did you? Oh, sorry, I thought that you were chiming in there for a moment, and I stepped on you, but that's not the case. Okay. Well, Lauren, we appreciate having you on. Appreciate you joining us. You can find more information on what's going on with the Outdoor Natural Play Area, their open hours, as well as all programs at West Bloomfield Parks on their website, wbparks.org. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll explore one of our favorite local events here, Arts, Beats, and Eats. We'll be speaking with the festival founder and producer, Jon Witz, on the other side of the break. That coming up. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why'd you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function.
Which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Here's one more reason. Anyone 18 years or older in Michigan vaccinated between December 1st, 2020 and July 30th, 2021 is now eligible to win millions in cash prizes, including $1 million jackpots and $50,000 daily prizes. And vaccinated students could win thousands in college scholarships. For eligibility details and to enter, go to mishottowin.com.
Trevor Project is sharing how you can support LGBTQ youth who may be at risk.
It's simple. Just show them that you care. C-A-R-E. Connect. If you noticed any warning signs of suicide from someone you know, reach out to them.
Ask. Ask directly, are you thinking about killing yourself? It might be challenging, but talking about suicide is proven to reduce risk.
Respond. If they open up to you about their suicidal ideation, honor that trust by responding with compassion and empathy.
Empower. Talking openly is a great first step, but now you can empower them with the information and the support they need to improve their situation.
Learn more about how you can show them you care and help prevent LGBTQ youth suicide. Visit trvr.org/care.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe alongside Erica Jones here in our studios in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to bring you more information about COVID-19 and everything that it's affecting, including some of our annual events such as Arts, Beats, and Eats. We're pleased to be joined by the festival founder and the producer of the Soaring Eagle Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival in Royal Oak. Jon Witz joins us now on the Megacast. Jon, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, Tyler. Glad to be here. And hello, Erica.
Appreciate having you on. So for those that are not familiar or this is kind of popping up on them like, oh, that's right, Arts, Beats, and Eats is back. When is the festival this year?
Yeah, it's coming up 3 weeks from tomorrow, September 3rd through 6th. And interesting times, but we are glad to be back and, looking forward to bringing some semblance of life back. And we're excited about it. We got a great show.
So last year, the event didn't go on as planned, but a different event did go on in its place. The Beats go on with some virtual events. How did that go? And then how did that experience inform your plans and your team's plans for this year's festival?
Sure. So it was really a big success. We rallied local musicians. They did virtual fundraisers on their own. We did drive-in concerts live. We got a grant from Oakland County to match up to $500,000 raised. We only hit $215,000, but that still matched $215,000. So we got $430,000 in the hands of local musicians last year who really were not performing at all. We also did a art fair by appointment with only 50 people at a time. And the artists actually did over 40,000 in sales. And that was successful at the Royal Oak Farmers Market outdoors. And then we sent food trucks to local neighborhoods. So I think that was a great way to express, our festival and some spirit in a tough year last year. And, that work last year really had no bearing on this year. We've been following, the state and CDC guidelines, and I know there are concerns now, but, events are not restricted, and we are, hosting our event at its normal scope and capacity this year.
So with the event being back in person this year, there's a lot of new things, and I know one of the new things being implemented is that you are no longer going to be having a ticket system required for vouchers that you exchange for concessions. I'm referencing this article from the Detroit Free Press that recently came out where you talked a little bit about that, but it seems like that system was disliked by many fest goers. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that did look like, how it's changing, and why this decision was made?
Sure. Yeah, it is a big move for us. And we did have some complaints about it. It served an important purpose for us. It helped, monitor the sales of our vendors. It took cash off the site from a security standpoint, where it was only, at 10 or 12 locations versus, at all the booths. And a lot of the restaurants liked it because it was easier for them to not worry about cash handling, et cetera. So there were a lot of reasons why we had the plan in place, but we did get feedback that it wasn't liked, and we are trying it for this year to see if the operations, logistics, and financial success can meet the benefits to the consumer, and we hope that it does. And it also, in a year where COVID is still out there, it does, take a lot of touch points away as well. So there's a safety and a customer service element, and we're excited, and people are excited that we're not doing it. But I just want to let folks know we didn't, just have it out there to have it out there and frustrate you. There were, when you're managing an event of this size, having things organized that way is, was helpful to us, but we're excited to deliver this for the consumer this year.
We're joined by Jon Witz, the festival founder and producer of the Soaring Eagle Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival in Royal Oak. And Jon, on top of the discontinuation of the ticket system and a change to an all-mobile system at this year's festival. What are some of the other changes that have been made as you've had now 2 years since the previous in-person festival to plan for this situation, given the situation with COVID-19 and that informing kind of the future of this event? What other changes can the public expect when they attend this festival in September?
Well, let me just start with a couple programming things, and then we can touch on some of the safety elements. On the programming side, we really went for it on the music. We have increased our budget and on national bands, and we brought in Stone Temple Pilots. We're about to announce a big one later today or tomorrow that's being added to Sunday. We have the Neon Trees this year, Gin Blossoms, Bobby Brown, Justin Moore. I think people will really see, a step up from a music standpoint. Our music fans will love it. Flagstar Bank has really upped the game on for Culture on 4th. They have donated exhibit space to BIPOC restaurants and artists. So we'll have a really beautiful, colorful cultural presentation with international music, art, and food on 4th between Maine and Lafayette. We moved our R&B stage to the north, which is a new change, and we've added the House of Dank lounge, and they are bringing in, DJs, dueling pianos, all sorts of interactive activities and games at 6th and Center. So that's something we're, excited about from a programming standpoint. On the safety side, we're in touch with health officials, and one of the things, we're not just doing increased, cleanup and sanitation, but we're going to have ambassadors, reminding, parents about hand sanitizing after each, children's activity use, because children are the group that, remain, under 12, cannot get vaccinated. So, that is a safety thing. We are considering some issues in our main stage. We're going to monitor, what other concert venues are doing, as well as, how the data comes in, over the next week or two. But you could see, vaccination requirements or proof of testing just to get into the main stage area. That's something I would monitor. Backstage at the festival, you have to be vaccinated or have proof of a negative test and dealing with national music. And the other thing we'll use, and I will do it right now, is we will use the opportunity when we do get the chance, on your show and in general with interviews to mention how important vaccinations are. I mean, we would not be doing an event, of this magnitude, and we would not be open if, not more than 70% of people in Oakland County have been vaccinated. And it really opens the door for, getting our life back. The vaccine is proved effective. There's science and data behind it. I know it's not everybody's choice, but we will mention that wherever we can. We'll encourage people to take care of themselves and be safe. And then lastly, something that's new is we will have a vaccination clinic on site during the festival that is sponsored by Oakland County. So there will not be any restrictions or proof of vaccine or negative test to get into the event. We'll suggest mask wearing with signage if you're not vaccinated, but we're not requiring anything to get in.
We're joined by Jon Witz. He is the festival founder and producer of the Soaring Eagle Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival, which will take place in Royal Oak on Labor Day weekend, September 3rd through September 6th of this year, coming up in just a few weeks. And obviously, when you're putting together a festival of this size and of this magnitude that people flock to each and every year, partnership is key in making this go on year in and year out, whether we're in a pandemic or outside of a pandemic. And given the situation last year, how important was partnership with Oakland County, with the city of Royal Oak, and with other sponsors to not only navigate that situation, given that we were not able to have an in-person festival, given that a lot of these artists, this is one of their biggest shows of the year and where they get a lot of their revenue and make their living, and given the situation with what's still going on with COVID-19, how important were those partnerships to not only keep the festival going in 2021, but also to support those artists and to support those vendors who were unable to get that influx of business in 2020 during one of the toughest periods for businesses and independent artists ever?
Without question, I mean, it's so important. Public-private partnerships, community partnerships are everything to us. You know, we've gotten some grant support from the county. We're using City of Royal Oak grant dollars this year to make restaurant booth spaces in downtown Royal Oak more affordable because of labor shortages. So folks can pay, you know, labor larger dollars. We had our supports of some of our top sponsors. You know, the Beats Go On program that you mentioned allowed us to get some revenue into the company through sponsorship and, you know, keep our staff and folks working. These relationships that you talked about with the county and the city are everything to us, and we try and use them for public good wherever we can. We'll have 60 nonprofits tied into the event this year. They'll be selling beverages to getting a portion. We have a program for children with autism where we'll have, you know, over the weekend, 2,000 kids and family members enjoying free lunch, admission, you know, carnival rides and parking. So we will, you know, we'll continue to collaborate. And the other aspect is the safety aspect. So, for example, because of our relationship with Oakland County, you know, I will have phone calls with their head of Department of Health, and we'll monitor statistics and state guidelines and just make sure that we're compliant and doing the right thing and give people the choice. And hopefully, again, that choice is to take care of themselves and get vaccinated, because again, that's why we're here. So I hope that answers your question, but they're everything to us.
So I know you recently referred to this year's lineup of artists as the biggest one you've had, very big names headlining the event this year. Talk to me a little bit about the process of getting such big names this year and why that was so important.
Well, I think it was important coming out of the you know, the pandemic. We, you know, our initial thought was, okay, hold back on the money. People are going to want to come out anyway. You know, that everyone just wants something to do and be outside. And we thought we needed to emerge, you know, and make a splash. So our philosophy on things kind of changed. You know, from a conservative approach on programming, you know, to going for it. And I think the music can really define things. And as far as how we got them, I mean, it was just, it's always research, and it's really tricky for a festival like ours to compete with the, you know, the Michigan Lottery Theaters, which is formerly Freedom Hill, or DT Energy, or Meadowbrook, and Aretha Franklin. It is not, was Shane Park. I mean, it is not easy to operate in that space and get national acts, even though some of ours aren't as big as those venues. You know, everyone was looking to book music. So, you know, it's just working hard research. And again, at the end of the day, it's spending a little bit more money. You know, we invested more dollars to get deals done, you know, that we thought we needed to do. And one other interesting thing about the music process is before we knew we were allowed to open, we did book 4 or 5 bands, you know, with COVID clauses. There's still COVID clauses in all of our contracts, but, you know, we did get ahead of the game, and we were booking in April and May as the vaccine was rolling out before the governor opened things up. So we got a little bit of a jump start too. So I hope that answers that one as well.
We're joined by Jon Witz, festival founder and producer of the Soaring Eagle Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival in Royal Oak. And so much goes into planning an event like this, to executing an event like this, but it's also an expensive event to produce as well, for the vendors, for, of course, the planners of this event. And in a situation like last year, where COVID-19 was making everybody's purse strings so much tighter, how important was grant money? It was money that was provided by the City of Royal Oak and Oakland County in order to continue this event on in 2021 and create a situation where we were able to bring some very, very high-profile headlining artists back, particularly on the music side, but also all across the board, to Arts, Beats, and Eats.
So in 2020, the grant money was not as significant. It was really more of a contract with the city that we were allowed to keep a portion of the sponsorship fee because things were, you know, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit, but it wasn't as much a grant money as it was, you know, just a fairness that we had begun planning the event. And with the county, there was some grant money as well, but there were a lot of partners. You mentioned Soaring Eagle, Flagstar Bank, Imperial Beverage. A lot of folks, you know, provided part of Priority Health is another one, provided part of their sponsorship, which allowed us not only to do the Beats Go On, but keep the company intact. As far as 2021, you know, a lot of our sponsors have come back strong with us, and, you know, the county just approved some grant money for us, which is critical, and the city just matched it. So, you know, so the money from the city of Royal Oak is actually being reinvested into downtown businesses. The Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority is going to be announcing a retail dollar program coming up next week. And the grant money we've received will provide ambassadors to promote folks visiting downtown businesses. Again, public-private partnership is critical, you know, to our success, and we just try and make the most positive impact we can with the dollars that we do. And, you know, dialing that back into Erica's question, you know, we've invested those dollars into our programming and our music, and, you know, we're ready to give everyone a great show this year.
Jon Witz with us on the Megacast. He is the festival founder and producer of the Soaring Eagle Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival coming up in Royal Oak on September 3rd through September 6th, Labor Day weekend. Jon, just another minute with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that would be important or interesting for our audience to know about Arts, Beats, and Eats?
Well, I would just tell you that so many small businesses, as you know, have alluded to, Tyler, have really, you know, ramped up and have not had the opportunity to sell their art or perform. And they've been rehearsing, they've been creating artwork. We have artists not only from Michigan, but from around the country. There will be such a great taste of culture and humanity, you know, out here. And I think that, and again, same, we've had so many restaurants from, you know, the Crispelli's and Luigi's and La Feast and Beans and Cornbread. There's just such variety, and all of these restaurants work so hard to get teams together to put on this show. So I would just say people are going to really get a taste of life, and take care of yourself, make your own choices related to health, wear a mask if you're comfortable, and you know, we will be ready to show everyone a nice time.
Well, Jon, we appreciate you joining us today, appreciate your time, and look forward to a great festival in September on Labor Day weekend. Jon Witz with us on the Megacast. He is the founder and the producer of Arts, Beats, and Eats. That's going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. Big thank you to all of our guests, Marcia Gershenson, Oakland County Commissioner, Dr. Gerald Hill from the West Bloomfield School District, Lauren Azoury from West Bloomfield Parks, and, of course, Jon Witz. Big thank you, of course, to Erica and to Calvin here in the studio with me, to Jay Kustash and Larry Nyland back at Master Control, and to everybody that works on this show each and every day. That's it for today's edition of the Megacast. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.